In this video, we're going to look at glyphs, especially in InDesign. Now, glyphs are available in Illustrator and Photoshop, and they kind of work the same way as if they would in InDesign. So I'm just going to show you here in InDesign how this works. I'm just going to start a new document, Command-N, and I'm just going to leave it as our normal 8.5 by 11, just to play around. It doesn't really matter. Now, I'm just going to obviously do the same thing. I'm just going to create a text, get my text tool there, create a text box. Doesn't matter. And I'm just going to fill it with some placeholder text. Right-click, fill with placeholder text, and there it is. Great, so now I have some text. Now by default, the style that is given to me is, I click on that, double click, and I have Minion Pro, 12 point, regular. That's totally fine, not a problem. Now the thing about all typefaces, or especially most good typefaces, very large, super fonts or different ones like that, you're going to have a lot of glyphs. Now glyphs are considered the actual characters that you're allowed to, that were designed for that specific typeface. So if I click on Minion here, and I'm going to look at the Glyphs panel. The Glyphs actually has its own panel. So if I go up to Window, you're not going to find glyphs in here. But if you go up to Type, you'll find glyphs here. So if I open up the Glyphs panel, look at everything I have here. This is every character that was specifically designed for this typeface. And it's actually this font, I should say. So it's Minion Pro Regular. If I change, I could change my font down here and my typeface down here, but let me just change the font. I'm going to change it to, let's say, bold, just to make a difference. And these are all the bold characters that were designed specifically for this typeface. This is what makes up the typeface. Now, there are some interesting characters here you will never use or you don't know, or there's some interesting ligatures and ordinals and numerals and lots of different operationals, different designs. There's a lot of different things here that you're going to find that are really, really interesting to use, and you might not realize that they're there, that you could use them. You obviously are very familiar with the normal alphabet, alphabet we're used to seeing, and the numbers and certain punctuation, but there is a lot more to, there's a lot more involved in these typefaces. So here are the glyphs. Now some glyphs you might never use, but some are going to be very common. There's like a copyright logo, or sorry, glyph or character we might call it. So all you have to do is double click on it and it shows up. There it is. Same with a simple one like your money sign. If you can't find it on your keyboard shortcut, you could just come to your glyphs panel and try to find it here. Now the issue though that comes up is that sometimes some typefaces do not have a lot of glyphs, meaning they were only designed specifically to have, a decent set of lowercase, sometimes not even uppercase, or vice versa. So usually when you go to like a website like DaFont or something like that, those typefaces normally don't have a full range of characters or glyphs to give you. They were quickly designed, even nicely designed nonetheless, but they don't give a full range. Some of them don't even have ampersands. When look at this one, this has a few different types of ampersands to use. Some have even more. If I go to, I'm going to go here really quickly and go to Garamond. Garamond is beautiful and has so many glyphs involved that it's just kind of a little, actually quite frankly, overwhelming. As you can see, there are a lot here to use, and a lot of different designs, and the finger pointing, and a lot of different characters you can use. And just once again, you can double click. It doesn't matter what typeface it was. You can just click inside, and all of a sudden you can have access to all these different typefaces and all these different glyphs. So that's just to show you there. So when you come across, I'm trying to find the registered mark. Obviously we found copyright. I usually like to find registered because that is a common one that I have to look for when I'm dealing with certain companies, that I need to put a registered mark somewhere. But either way, it's in here somewhere. I think this is it right here. Very, very small. That I'd have to use that in that regard. Either way. These are glyphs, and you can use them anyway. So I could access different typefaces here and look up different glyphs. You do different fonts. I could actually make them smaller or make them bigger, depending on how I want to look at them. Also up here, I could look at all my recently used ones. So if I found one that I used a lot or kind of went back to, I could just double click on it and bring it up. There's my common recently used row. Here I could also pinpoint certain ones. So if I a recent glyph or alternate for this particular selection. So if I looked at just the ampersand and I want alternates just for that selection, it'll show me just the ampersands and try to find relative ones. I could also look at all these different ones, just numbers, just currency, just symbols, a few different ones. Now some typefaces don't have ordinals, or some typefaces don't have ornaments, or quite frankly swash, or some typefaces don't have lowercase, or whatever the case is. That's why it's always great to use commonly used typefaces that have large amounts of glyphs and characters that were designed that way, because you have so much to use, and they're really, really great to have access to that. Because another great thing about it too is, like, say I brought this in and I copy that, this leaf glyph character here, and now all of a sudden I can create an outline, and all of a sudden it's an icon, and I can stretch it up, I can do different things with it. As a vector, I can now play around if I wanted to change it up a little bit. However, I can do that because now it was a well-designed glyph, and now I've converted it to an outline, and I can treat it like a proper vector with path and fill and play around with it. So that's actually kind of a fun thing to do too. The other interesting thing we can do as well is actually we can go to this little drop down here and we can make our own glyph set. So I'm going to make a new glyph set. I'm just going to call it, mine, and I'll just say okay. And what I can do is if I have commonly used, like let's pretend right here, I've commonly used glyphs I want to use. I have this copyright one. It's like I use this one a lot. I can make my own glyph set. So I made my own glyph set because I made a new one, and I'm gonna add to the glyph set. And this shows it right there, the one I just called mine. So there I go. And let's pretend I'm gonna add another one here. I'm just gonna grab this ampersand here. I like this ampersand, and I'll say okay, add to glyph set, and there it is, mine. Cool. Now I want to view my glyph set, so I could add to it. I could edit the glyph set. I can view the glyph set, which I'm going to do. I could delete the glyph set. So I'm just going to go to view it, and there it is. There's my glyph set. So you can have this open and actually make your own glyph set of the most commonly used ones that you find, which comes in very handy when you're constantly going from one. I really like Garamond, certain characters in Garamond, which I can't find anywhere else, but I always have to go back to Garamond. Well, if you make your own set, you don't have to. So this is a quick look at glyphs and how we're able to use them. You could actually select a certain glyph here. I'm going to get out of here for a second and go back to my recent glyphs, the entire font, and here I go. So obviously you can find your glyph set here, but I'm just going to go back to the entire font. I can actually click on a character and it's our highlighted character, and it's going to show me where it is. And you'll see if you roll over the tooltip, it gives you the Unicode, it gives you the name of it, it gives you quite a bit of information involved there. So once again, getting fonts from Adobe fonts, beautiful. They're really curated. They come from great type foundries or excellent designers that give you a lot of glyphs. Or Google fonts, but when you get into different places that even someone you design it yourself, if you don't have a lot of glyphs involved, you don't have as much to play around with certain punctuation or whatever. But playing around with a good font set, a good typeface that has a lot of glyphs per each font is a great way to design and to work with. Now, just to show you here in Illustrator, you can also open up your Glyphs panel. It's under Type, just like it was in InDesign. Go to Glyphs, and there's your glyphs. Alternatively, in Photoshop, it's not where you'd find it under Type. You go to under Type, it's not there. You'd find it under Window, where you'd find a lot of other panels, and there's your Glyphs panel. So it works the exact same way. Have a text box open, double-click on a glyph, and you can add that specific glyph to your type. So that's exactly how you can find it in Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign.